Boa tarde. My name is Rob, and I am based in Australia. It is an honour and a pleasure to be with you all today. And I would first like to say parabéns. Congratulations to Carlos, to George, and to João for the fantastic work that they have done in quantifying the social and economic cost of crashes in Portugal. It is such an important piece of work, and we need to make sure that we focus on understanding those crash costs so that we can ensure that the right level of investment can be mobilised for road trauma reduction in Portugal and in every country worldwide. I have some slides to run through with you today, and I'd like to share with you the business case of road safety and trauma reduction worldwide so that we can actually create this momentum to get the decade of action truly operational. So iRAP is a global charity, and we work in partnership with governments, with automobile clubs, with research agencies, with industry worldwide to create a world free of high-risk roads. Those partnerships now extend to more than 100 countries around the world. Over 3 million kilometres of roads have been assessed with risk mapping and star rating, just as Carlos shared that you have completed in Portugal. But importantly, it is all about mobilising the investment that will save lives. And we've seen more than 80 billion US dollars mobilised and made safer around the world. So I love the work that you have just done and you've heard about this afternoon. The really astounding thing when you look at road trauma is road deaths are just the tip of the iceberg. We hear about those in the news and they are tragic for everyone involved. But underneath the tip of the iceberg is this true burden of road trauma that manifests itself as brain injuries, as quadriplegia, as spinal injuries, as life-changing limb fractures that lead to lifetime care, complete change in lifestyle for people, and costs to business, to the economy, to the health system, to your whole society. And we know that at a global level, this level of trauma is horrific each and every day. We are talking about 1,000 or more brain injuries. We're talking about 20,000 limb fractures. We're talking about over 1,000 spinal injuries. And this is happening each and every day on the world's roads. And it is leading to the costs that have just been shared with you today. So the question is, what do we do about it? And I think we've proven with COVID that when we have the vaccines, when we do get organised, we can actually roll out those vaccines on a scale that matters. And we do have the vaccines for roads. We have the United Nations Decade of Action for Road Safety through to 2030. We have the 12 global road safety performance targets that outline the road safety management, the safer roads, the safer vehicles, the safer road users, and the improved post-crash care that are part of that total safe system. So the question is, why aren't we applying the vaccines for roads on a scale that matters? Now, pretty simply, there is a market failure when it comes to road safety and our associated investment in road safety. Because at the moment, the costs of road trauma, who pays? The health sector pays. The families pay. Business pays. These costs are happening each and every day, and they extend long into the future. And whether that's insured costs or personal costs or government costs, they are real. And there is a very big brick wall between those costs and the solutions. So the significance of your work today is to be able to very closely connect an investment in safer roads and what it means for reduced brain injury and costs in the health system, and be able to relate that to every investment that you implement, as Carlos has just shared. So one way I like to look at it is you are now nearly 2 years in to the second decade of action for road safety. At the beginning of the decade, based on the work we've heard today, you could have issued an invoice to the people of Portugal for 34.7 billion euros just for the human cost of road trauma over the decade. That number grows to 64.2 billion euros over the decade based on that study we've just seen today. That is the cost of road trauma to Portugal between now and 2030. So how much are you willing to invest to stop the brain injuries, to stop the spinal injuries, the limb fractures, and the fatalities as well? And that is really the way we should tackle this problem over the next decade, to make sure it is a decade of action and delivery. And it's great that Carlos shared the results. Thanks to the Automobile Club of Portugal, ANSR, and the other partners in Portugal, you now have this baseline for 5,000 kilometres of roads. Roads where I believe accounted for roughly 43% of the fatalities. And we can see that by just running through the business case, you can go from 61% of travel at 3-star or better, all the way to 87% of travel 3-star or better, with around 100 million euros of investment that will give you 800 million euros of benefits. There's not too many banks at the moment that will give you 8-to-1 return on investment, but road safety will, and investment in safer road infrastructure will. So that is the opportunity that sits in front of us, and how we have that discussion with Treasury, with governments, with development banks is very important, as well as with our citizens. And so the key part about what I'd like to share today is really the global perspective on this, where worldwide we have the iRAP global standard being applied right across the world and recommended by the UN member states. We have examples of risk mapping, looking at the historical crash mapping, but also the star ratings, not just for vehicle occupants, but also for pedestrians, for cyclists, for motorcyclists, to make sure that we are catering for that 3-star or better performance for all road users. And why do we want 3-star or better? Again, when you look at that tragic toll of brain injury, quadriplegia, limb fractures, and fatalities, we can halve them if we can take a 1-star road and upgrade it to 2-star. We can halve them again if we can bring that road up to 3-star, halving again 4-star, halving again 5-star. That is why the UN has adopted the 3-star or better global standard, because on just about every road, 3-star or better is economically viable and socially responsible. But also we know on high volume roads, you should be aiming for 5-star standard. And if we can do that worldwide, we will save more than 30% of the world's road deaths and injuries, 450,000 lives a year. 100 million people will be saved from death or injury over the life of those infrastructure treatments if we can bring the world's roads to 75% of travel at 3-star or better by 2030. That's the opportunity of the partnerships we are creating in each country worldwide. But importantly, we also need to look at innovative financing for how we can connect this sort of huge cost of road trauma and mobilise it to roll out the solutions. And so the World Bank Group has just completed a major study on how to mobilise private sector financing for road safety. It's a fantastic book, and I recommend that you read that, because it'll bring new perspectives about financing and how we actually become more innovative in scaling up action between now and 2030. And partly it's about monetising the costs of road trauma, which is exactly what the study you've been presented with today does for Portugal. You now know where the costs are, who they're impacting, where in the system those costs are being incurred. And we can provide the access to capital with road safety bonds, just as we have green bonds. And the European Investment Bank, the World Bank and others are looking at these mechanisms for road safety bonds and road safety sustainable financing. You can then bring in the blended finance, both national insurance companies, civil society, philanthropies, and central government to actually bring the blended finance instruments to make that happen. And the World Bank is investing in sort of the support to roll that out. And that study's been put together with the International Finance Corporation, with iRAP ourselves, as well as the FIA. And in terms of infrastructure, that mechanism the World Bank's worked on can happen for upgrading vehicle fleets, for infrastructure, or road user behaviour. But in terms of infrastructure, quite simply, if you set a policy target to have 90% of travel at 3-star or better by 2030 in Portugal, you can then use your assessments to identify where you can make those savings as quick as possible. You can calculate the benefit streams and also the injuries that you will save and where in the system those costs fall. You can then mobilise those savings into an annual dividend stream that can operate like a shadow toll or an actual toll road as needed to be able to get people onto the safest form of infrastructure for that particular road user, whether that be pedestrians or vehicle occupants. So that opportunity then is one that is already happening in Brazil. So here we have the Transport Minister in Brazil, Tarcísio Freitas, launching the latest concession project that has a 3-star or better criteria written into the actual concession contract. So the private operators that take over that road must bring the road up to a 3-star or better standard, and mostly in the early stages of the concession period. So here's one of the toll roads near Brasilia, and you can see on the left of the image the before for that particular road, and then where we will be after, where the majority of travel will actually grow to a 5-star standard. And you can see the benefit of this approach is you can actually predict where you will be after year 1, after year 5, after year 10, even before the concession starts. You know the investment needed, and the concessionaire is contracted to deliver that safety performance as part of their contract. So this then is being rolled out on one of the more recent ones, known as the PIPA project. And you can see there that there is over $3 billion of capital will be mobilised across that road to upgrade it, and again, a lot of it, to 4-star or 5-star standard. Large volumes of traffic will now shift onto that safer infrastructure. They've also structured it so some of the concession fees are actually going back to the government at the beginning of the concession period. So very viable for governments, even if you're fiscally constrained. It's about you unlocking those €8 of benefits for every euro invested, but bringing in innovative financing to do that. And you can see in the bottom table there, we're also incentivising the concessionaire to go above and beyond the minimum targets. So they will get a greater share of that concession fee if they deliver 3.5-star, 4-star, 5-star. And that really does what we want to see, is market interest in incentivising improved road safety outcomes. And so we see this scaling worldwide as part of public-private partnerships to create 3-star or better highways around the world. It can be used as a shadow toll or availability payment in those structures, but it can also be used in the negotiation of increased concession periods as well. And we have some examples around the world where those toll roads and private sector roads are already hitting that 4- and 5-star standard. But again, this can also apply on city streets. My dream is that Lisbon, for example, will be the first 5-star city in the world, because I know you are already doing great work for pedestrians and cyclists and providing for all forms of mobility in a safe way in Lisbon. So let's see if we can make 5-star cities the goal for the future, and also bring in this innovative financing that can deliver both safe and sustainable transport and contribute to the SDGs as a result of that. And so in closing, the opportunity for you there in Portugal is to grasp the global 3-star or better standard, to build the business case for those upgrades, to then upgrade those roads, but importantly, celebrate them. Get together with the club president, get together with ANSR, with Infraestruturas de Portugal, to actually ribbon cut these 3-star or better roads and celebrate each and every life saved. And if we can do that together, we will reach the 2030 targets for road safety and save lives, save money, and create jobs. Obrigado.